What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Under Review podcast, where we dive deep into what really went down on the field. I'm your host, Jason, alongside Nathan. Let's get started. So, the first day is draft hit and misses.
So our first steal was Caleb Downs from the Dallas Cowboys safety. The Cowboys traded up for this pick, the three-time All-American and national champion safety. It addresses their defensive need because they needed a safety very badly. And a guy at this high caliber with all-pro level that they picked outside of the top 10, amazing pick.
So the Packers, which is my favorite team, they didn't have a first-round pick because of the Micah Parsons trade, which I'm a bit sad about. But I really think that if they did have a first-round pick, they needed to address their horrible wide receiver room full of average wide receivers that, like, we need that one big guy to kind of up the stakes, I guess, and help Jordan Love. One of my busts are Caleb Banks from the Minnesota Vikings. He gets injured very easily, and they took him for absolutely no reason as the 18th pick. They had so much more options of defensive people, and they took him. They could have traded down. They have so many valuable players that they have so many underrated players that don't have any value on their team, and could have gotten traded away for a lower pick. Okay.
On the topic
What
of
do
people who did not have a first-round pick this year, the Bengals, Broncos, Falcons, Colts, Packers, and Jaguars are the teams without a first-round pick this year. Bengals because of Dexter Lawrence. Broncos because I actually don't remember. Falcons because they traded it away. Colts because they traded it to the Jets. Packers obviously for Micah Parsons. And the Jags also traded around their initial first-round pick.
that Dexter Lawrence trade I didn't like. That was horrible by the Giants. Like, he did so good, and out of all the people you trade on your defense, you get rid of him, the
So
guy who was kind of top on your defense for a long time.
So people say that the Dexter Lawrence trade was bad because Dexter Lawrence had 0.5 sacks, but I don't know why people are judging him for that. He had the most pressures out of any D lineman, or I think it's defensive lineman. Yes, correct. And in the past 5 years, he has the most by almost triple.
Yeah. Another steal who I have is Jared McCoy, a cornerback that the Raiders took in the fourth round, pick 101 overall. He's a top 10 prospect in those DB contentions, and he had a past ACL injury. Now, while he may be prone to it again, the Raiders, I think, have decent backups, I would say, that can easily replace him or even mentor him for the future.
A bust I have is quarterback Carson Beck for the Arizona Cardinals. At pick number 65, there was no reason to take Carson Beck. Carson Beck wasn't even in the picture for quarterbacks taken. The quarterback class this year was really weak, and out of all the quarterbacks you could have taken, I would have taken Penn State quarterback, not Carson Beck. Carson Beck in college was really helped by being on the Hurricane, and I feel like every Cardinals fan hated this pick.
Yeah, like, I don't think they have a current quarterback. Like, who is their quarterback to go? But Carson Beck, I don't think, is your guy if you are expecting that. Another bust that I think is in the draft is the Pittsburgh Steelers picking Drew Aller. Like, what's the point? You got Will Howard last year. He hasn't played a game, so you don't know how well he's going to be. And now you're over here picking another prospect with a late round pick. So, and
On
plus, he wasn't very good last year in college. So he kind of fell down a lot.
on my bust watch, not because he's a bad player, but because of his situation, Carnell Tate. The Titans just grabbed wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson from the Giants this offseason. There was no need to draft Carnell Tate. Your wide receiver room did need improvement, but not as much as most of the other positions. You need Cam Ward help on the O line and maybe some running back help because Spears and Pollard are not good enough to run an offense.
Yeah. I think Tony Pollard, he's like he was so good on the Cowboys. Like he wasn't so good, but he was way better. And we kind of know what changed. It's like going to the Titans has shown like incredible decrease in your stats and skill. So him going there just basically seals that off, I should say. It was a great pickup by the Titans, but it was also kind of expected for him to be bad.
The Browns had some great picks in the late rounds, but Casey Concepcion at number 24 was not one of the picks they needed. They need O-line help. They have some good O-linemen, but in general, they need more help for their running backs, including Jerome Ford and rookies from last year. And then if you want Shedeur Sanders to be a playable quarterback, you're going to need help at wide receiver, but you have Jerry Jeudy, who is not very great, but he's not horrible and he can play. Then you have Harold Fannin from last year, amazing tight end. But there was no need to pick Casey Concepcion, especially with his dropping issues in college and his tracking concerns.
Yeah. So I want to address another topic real quick. Have you heard that Russell Wilson is in talk with the Jets?
I have.
I don't even know what's going on with their quarterback room. It's full of Geno Smith, and they have about 6 quarterbacks currently, and none of which I feel like you can trust with a game in their hands. I think next year, if they do bad and they have a first-round pick, or if I meant the first pick, they are going to pick Arch Manning, which I also think is going to bite them in the dust, because Arch Manning has shown that he's not the guy who everybody says he is, because he didn't even lead Texas to the college football playoffs.
Another one of my great picks here was the Chargers picking Daquan Wright with elite speed and a giant deep threat option, almost like Quentin Johnston at the start of last year. I feel like they needed this pick. Late rounds normally don't do great, but he was 1,000 yards in SEC, and I feel like great steal. And a bust I had was quarterback Ty Simpson, number 13 in the Rams. I know everyone's heard about this pick and everyone's complaining about it. I get why they did it, like the Jordan Love behind Aaron Rodgers pick that I'm sure you are very aware of. But yeah. the Stafford is on his final years, and they could have drafted like Kenyon Sadiq as tight end, but they're not trying to go in now. They're trying for the future. But you want Matthew Stafford to win now mode with Puka and Devontae while they're still there, because Devontae and Stafford are getting old, and Stafford's probably going to retire.
Yeah. So I like what the Packers did with the whole mentor thing, and I hope they keep on doing it. And while everybody was mad at the Packers for picking Jordan Love with the first round pick, look what happened then. The difference is that they weren't like a playoff contender at the time, like these Rams were. Like the Rams were so close to winning the championship that they need to focus on what they're doing now. And I'm not saying they shouldn't have drafted a quarterback, but I'm saying they should have drafted one late rounds. Picking Ty Simpson as your 14th pick when you could have picked a tight end to replace Tyler Higbee to help your defensive squad. Like, anything could have been better than that pick. Another steal that I have, it's kind of obvious, but it's Fernando Mendoza. It's not really a steal, but it's just a good pick overall.
He was the only amazing quarterback in this class by far.
Yeah, and we all know that's what the Raiders need. I like their pickup of Geno Smith last year because I think it's kind of the guy who you want. Like, he's not too much money, and you're not offering him a long-term contract based off his age and like his undeterminable skill. So it wasn't really shocking to anybody that they were going to pick him. And it's kind of just an obvious good pick.
Okay, so Geno Smith gets a lot of hate, but I feel like that was a great pickup. And then picking up Kirk Cousins to mentor Fernando was a great signing, in my opinion. Another one of my busts was Kalen Black of the San Francisco 49ers. The third round pick, RB, and it was really weak. He was ranked 214th, but the Niners could have taken a lot of more proven options. And I just think this wasn't a great pick in the third round when there was still great people available.
Now, also another obvious great pick was Arvell Reese. It's kind of to replace who was it they traded away? Brian Burns. And I liked the pick because now that Brian Burns is gone and Kayvon Thibodeau's kind of on and off on his greatness, it's going to help Abdul Carter have help on the defense, which is huge. And I don't know how he fell down to pick number 5. It was kind of pathetic by the other teams that could have picked him.
And this NFL draft, even with all our takes, had great picks, bad picks, but in overall, it was a great draft.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to close off today's episode. It was the first episode. We tried our best, and we'll see if we come back for another one.
Thank you for watching.